Hi. I've seen a lot of horror movies, but there's one that I've avoided just point blank out of fear, and it's this one. I mean, remember the maze game?
I bet nobody has.
Today, I'm going to be watching The Exorcist to see if my fear has been warranted this entire time. And I will not be closing my eyes at any point. The movie starts out in northern Iraq, where we meet this old dude who is searching for something. Old man doing stuff. What's he up to? I don't know. Boom. Georgetown. Here we meet Chris and her daughter Reagan. Reagan is honestly pretty adorable, and it kind of pains me knowing that her life is about to completely suck. And they have a really nice life too. Chris is like this really well-known actress who gets invited to parties at the White House. Ooh. After Chris tackles Reagan to the ground for a croissant, we meet this man, Damien, who I'm not gonna really talk about a lot. I'm sorry, okay? Anyways, back at the McNeil household, Chris comes across a Ouija board that Reagan has been playing around with. And somehow Chris has no idea where it came from. Like, really? It's your house. Anyways, before they can start, the piece starts moving on its own. Ooh. Reagan says Captain Howdy does not want Chris to play. Apparently, that's the little guy inside of the Ouija board answering. The next night, Chris wakes up to find Reagan in her bed, saying her bed won't stop shaking and she can't sleep. Chris goes to investigate in the attic for some reason and just finds their helper Carl up there scavenging for rats. Flash forward to a highbrow party being thrown at the McNeil household where things start to get a little funky. Everyone's having a whole lot of fun when Reagan emerges and says this.
You're gonna die up there.
And then does this. Chris thinks she must be sick, but ooh, Chris, you're about to find out how wrong you are. Soon after putting Reagan to bed, she hears her screaming from her bedroom. Although I wasn't very spooked by the shaking bed, I have to say the screams of fear were honestly pretty disturbing. So I'm not really focusing on the priest and his storyline here, but I do have to mention this weird dream he has. We see this guy pop up out of nowhere. Who is this? Who is this man? Chris takes Reagan to a doctor who tells her that there's a lesion on her temporal lobe that's causing her to hallucinate and have spasms. But Chris is like, hold up. Her bed was shaking. Those weren't spasms. But after doing a bunch of tests, everything comes back normal. Meanwhile, things are just getting way worse for Reagan. She's flopping around on her bed like a fish, and the demon inside of her is getting a little vulgar.
Fuck me! Fuck me! Fuck me!
This whole scene was pretty tough to watch, honestly. I think the actress that plays Chris is insanely good. Her reactions and her fear to her daughter honestly just feel so real. And the doctors are still trying to convince her that the problem is neurological, but Chris is just not buying it. Chris's day only gets worse when she finds out that her good friend Burke Dennings just died, falling down a flight of stairs right outside. Gee, I wonder how that happened. Back to Reagan, they try hypnosis, which doesn't help much. After talking with a very suspicious detective, Chris hears a commotion from upstairs, and Reagan is, well...
Fuck you! Let Jesus fuck you! Let him fuck you!
Chris asks Damien the priest to perform an exorcism on Reagan, and he's like, yeah, maybe if we were in the 16th century. But he agrees to help her out. Reagan's looking not great. After giving the priest a healthy serving of pea soup, he says he can't do the exorcism because the church needs proof that they can accept. But this proof is like speaking a language that she doesn't know. So the green bile's just not enough. Like, her eyes aren't even the same color anymore. Damien's not even convinced. He thinks that Chris should just take Reagan back to the hospital. But she's like, no, that thing in there is not my daughter. Damien comes through with the holy water, but oh my God, it wasn't holy water. Damien records her and realizes that she's speaking in reverse. He hears a name, Marin. Oh my God, it's the old guy from the beginning. What do you mean I didn't talk about him? While we're waiting for him to show up, we get some of the most horrifying scenes in the whole movie. And then Marin shows up. Yay. The exorcism begins. This exorcism is unlike any I've seen in any modern possession movies. It was long and oddly quiet. Oh my God, there's the creepy face again. Reagan is just completely leaking, and Father Marin tries to clean it with a scarf, or what is that? Frankly, it's not going very well, and Father Marin is getting a little frustrated. Oh, there's that head spin. It's such an oddly paced scene. Maybe I'm just used to the dramatics of movies like The Conjuring or Insidious, but it feels more real. Like two guys that are just doing what they can way in over their heads. Uh-oh, Marin's dead. To end this absolute shit show, Damien sacrifices himself and just yeets himself right out the window. But Reagan is freed. I really feel for Chris here. I mean, she just spent so long watching her daughter completely dissolve into this demon, and you can see the hesitance on her face and in her movements. Like, she can't quite trust it yet. But everything is finally okay. The McNeils are going to be just fine. So many horror movies now rely on dark and ominous lighting or silence leading to loud noises to elicit a jump. But what I loved about this movie is that it didn't need either of those things to really scare you. Every time that bedroom door opens, we see Reagan losing herself more and more in the possession, and it's super disturbing. There weren't any moments that made me jump, but that doesn't really matter. Now, this movie came out at the tail end of 1973. Were there moments that came off a little corny to me? Yeah, I couldn't really get into Reagan's demon voice, but to be fair, I've always found possession voices to be pretty dumb. But for a movie that was made 50 years ago, it really holds up. It leaves an impression, and the acting is like really, really good. I can imagine being a teen in the 70s, being scared half to death by Reagan's head spinning, the bed shaking, the green bile. But as a 26-year-old in 2023, I wasn't particularly petrified, which is fine. So, is The Exorcist actually scary? I mean, it depends on who you ask. My mom, who saw it when she was like 10, will tell you it's the scariest movie that's ever been made. But for me, well, not really.